Now in this video, we'll be learning from my mistake of flipping a tractor. We'll also be spraying the corn with a drone and seeing it grow from planting stage all the way getting ready to harvest. Everything was going smoothly, and I was now mowing near the road when I had the bright idea. Right there, I turned onto the road and thought, I'll make a quick pass along the gravel in the ditch edge and clean that grass up. And 30 seconds in, this is what ended up happening. There was a hole I didn't see through the grass. It kind of pulled the tractor in once I hit it. I made a few attempts to get out of it, every time getting closer and closer to the edge. I thought I was far enough away I would be totally safe. And the only smart thing is, I had the rollover protection system on, and I ended up just yanking it to the left, flooring it, hoping that I wouldn't tip and I would be able to ride into the ditch and then drive up and out a different way. But obviously that didn't happen. I jumped off in time well before it even got to the rollover protection system there to the bar. And this is kind of what it sounded like, but I didn't have the camera there to see it. And this is what the ditch looked like. As you can tell, I didn't make it very far down the road by the time I flipped over, and it was a pretty steep angled ditch. But I wanted to include this segment of me being an idiot to remind people not to be an idiot like me and be a bit safer on tractors. And also, this is a reminder to always put up the rollover protection system on whatever piece of equipment you have. Whether you're in a small tractor, big tractor, or just a zero-turn mower, it's probably smart to have it up, even if you think it's never going to happen, because honestly, I was so far away from this ditch in my mind that this was never going to happen. And you could kind of justify not having it up, but it's good I did. I got the tractor flipped over thanks to a neighbor's help, and now the engine wouldn't turn over, and it was hydrolocked because it was on its side for a little too long, and oil got into the cylinders, and it was locked up. And I did try and start it right away, which, looking at it now online, I guess you're supposed to let them sit for a day or two. Hopefully the oil drains down, and you don't have any issues of hydrolocking. And I pulled the valve cover off now because it wouldn't start after letting it sit for a day. What I'm going to do now, I think, is drain all the oil out of the engine. Here are the glow plugs. I'm going to drain all the oil. brought a little portable shop vac, suck out as much oil as I can, and then hand crank it with the glow plugs cracked. Try and get all the oil out of the top of the engine, refill it with oil, and see if it'll start. And the only way to get to the glow plugs was to take the cover off. It would have been nice if I didn't have to, but don't really know what I'm doing. Just looked online, YouTube, and asked some friends. What I'm a little worried about is leaves falling in here or something. All right, there we go. We're getting oil out. There we go. After I got the tractor started, I checked for leaks, made sure there was enough oil in the engine, and it did smoke quite a bit at the beginning, and it slowly got better and better, and about an hour in, it went away. I'm guessing that was oil on the exhaust manifold and then just oil that was getting burnt. In the end, it was a good learning experience, both to be a little safer when driving the tractor and then also how to fix it once I got oil into the cylinders. And I got everything mowed and finished up and ready for harvest. So I just wanted to mow the grass along where we're going to drive in and just kind of clean things up and maintain it. And before the whole tractor flipping fiasco, I had some guys come out with their drone, and we ended up spraying some fungicide and also Source on the corn right when it was starting to tassel. So what the liquid the drone is applying right now is a mixture between fungicide and Source. And fungicide is supposed to help plant health and protect it against disease. And then Source is getting sprayed right now. And what that is, it's my understanding is it's not actually adding nitrogen and phosphorus, like applying it. It's supposed to help the plant uptake more nitrogen and phosphorus. So that's already there in the soil. So currently we got about 180 pounds of nitrogen in the field, and 150 of that was from the anhydrous this spring, and then 30 from the UAN pre-spray. And so if this gives you 25 or 180 plus 25, that's 205. And then also you could factor in the last year's soybean crop that leaves some nitrogen in the ground as well. Right now we tassels started showing up about a week and a half ago. It was pretty uneven. And then last week for the past like 5-6 days, it was like 95 to 100 degrees out. And so we didn't want to put it on then for fear of evaporation. And so it's going to be an 80-degree day today, a slight wind. So the dew's off this morning, and it's July 29th. So putting on this fungicide a bit later than most people would have in this region, just because I planted a bit later, and then I waited another week just to not let the heat evaporate it. Now, once they landed, they would fill 10 gallons of product and switch batteries. The batteries were being charged on a generator and only took 15 minutes to charge, so 3 batteries can keep them going all day. I timed them, and it took 1 minute and 30 seconds on average from landing to taking off again. On one flight, they can do roughly 5 acres, and they typically get 35 acres done in an hour. Also with the drone, they can add a broadcaster attachment instead of spraying and throw a cover crop on prior to harvesting whatever crop you have, which was pretty interesting to hear about. Now let's take a look at how the corn came along from planting date to late September. I ended up planting on May 20th, which was later than planned due to too much rain. This shot here is late June, where the corn is about knee high. Right away you can see the outline of what was being farmed last year and what was not. And up to this point, we had 5 inches of rain since planting, which is awesome. The waterway came in nicely after it being burned in the spring, and here you can see where we made that clay tile patch just a month earlier, so we got it all slicked up, graded out, but at least we had no more issues with the tile for the rest of the season. Now here is where I think I made a planting mistake. On this side of the field, we were doing a trial where half the planter, 6 rows, was going to be filled with Pioneer seed, and then the other half would be Whiffles, and so you'd go down one pass and turn around, and so you'd have 12 rows of Pioneer, 12 rows of Whiffles side by side, and you can see what yields better. Now the field was going to be planted 90% with Pioneer seed, 90% of the acres were, and so it being a smaller seed, I adjusted the planter vacuum pressure, and it looks like possibly with that adjustment, the planter didn't like the larger seed of the Whiffles, and maybe it was skipping here because I could not find the seeds here, and it really showed on the drone. Now these strips in the field that were going east and west are really concerning to see at first here. I didn't know how it would end up affecting the field yield, but with help from others, we ended up diagnosing the issue here. All the plants were there, so not a planter issue. They were just stunted. The conclusion was that it was a nitrogen burn from the anhydrous that just stunted and, kind of delayed the corn that got hit with the anhydrous burn. So to kind of explain it real quick, the anhydrous was put on at an angle to how I planted with the corn rows. So every so many yards, the nitrogen pass and the corn rows would line up perfectly. And what's really cool to see is you don't see it in areas that weren't farmed the previous year. And my guess, possibly in others' ideas, were that this is due to the higher organic matter. Here's what some of the corn looks like next to the trees. The combination of shade, the tree roots, and then also deer coming out. And I would be surprised if the corn put an ear on. This is 3 days after a 2.5-inch downpour, and this spring this sat wet. A few times it sat wet this year, but yeah, it's not going to grow anything. Obviously, it kind of goes all along here, creeks here, and then it starts to go uphill. So this is like a valley that goes all the way and then through there. So anyway, maybe that's something we can fix. Now here's what things look like at tassel when we put on fungicide. Up to that point, late July 29th, we had 10 inches of rain since planting, and this year turned out to be fairly dry, but the rains we did get were good timed. It's just mainly the rains were very spaced out, where 2, 3, I think one time almost 4 weeks of a gap between significant rains. In these shots, it is late September. The corn's going to mature really quick, dry down, and lose a lot of its leaves and color. Now it really stands out, the different hybrids in the trial that we're doing. What was cool to see, those stripes that I was talking about, those seem to kind of vanish and go away. You couldn't tell anymore. But unfortunately, the best part of the field where we had that planting issue, the fact the seeds weren't there, obviously you can't fix that. But it was awesome to see. The corn was about 11 feet tall in some spots, and the ear was head high. So crazy tall corn. And I was praying that a windstorm wouldn't come through and blow it all over. And doing ear checks, they were coming in at 19.3 around on average. And then it looked like the Whiffles were a bit shorter at 39 kernels long versus the Pioneer. It averaged 42 long, which is awesome to see. And when you go online and do yield calculators, it was looking like we're going to yield above 200 for sure. And at this point, that's the goal. Anything above 200, I'm going to be happy with. There's going to be a lot of deductions from end rows. Our planter doesn't have end row shutoffs, so you have point rows and they double plant. Those fall over. Those don't yield very good. And then obviously the end rows that get shaded out, eaten by deer, all that stuff. Some spots are going to yield literally 0 bushels to the acre, so that's going to drop the average a bunch. So 200 across the field average, I'll be happy with. And so at this point, it's time for the corn to dry down here, and next week we will be harvesting it. So stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, because I will have that harvest video out next week on Saturday. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for watching, really appreciate it. Have a good one.